So today we'll continue talking about structures in C++. But since we started the structures on Thursday, you may have forgotten, so I'm going to quickly review how do you define structure data type, declare objects of type structure, initialize those variables. So this is what we did on Thursday. And today I talk about how to define, declare, and initialize arrays of structures, how to declare and use pointers to structures. So basically this is how we are proceeding. We first studied, for example, arrays, right? Then we studied functions. Then what did we do? We studied arrays with functions. We know functions, we know arrays. How do we pass an array to a function? Then we are now studying, for example, and then we studied pointers. So when we studied pointers, we compare pointers to arrays. We studied how to pass pointers to functions. Every time we study a new topic, we combine it with all the previous topics. So today we are studying structures, or actually we started before the weekend, structures. So what we are going to do right now is structures with pointers, structures with arrays. I did not cover structures with functions, even though it should be easy and straightforward topic, how to pass structures to functions and how to return structures from functions. But we're going to study it with classes. For example, we study a new thing, classes. So we're going to study class with pointer, class with function, class with arrays. Okay? So even though this lecture appears to be a long lecture, but it is very simple because we already know what pointers are, and we already know what arrays are. So it is easy to combine them with structures. So this is the structure from last time, but I removed one member, one field, so it is only 3 members, no, not 4 members. And the student record structure, as we said, there are many steps. The first thing is to define the type only. It does not allocate any space in memory, and it does not store any values in memory. This is only a definition of a type. It starts with the keyword struct, which is a reserved keyword. It is a statement in itself. The type definition is a statement, so it ends with a semicolon. It ends with a semicolon. And it contains several fields or members. So they are combined together using the braces. We have been using the braces in C++ for many different purposes. This is one of the purposes, is to combine, to join the fields of a structure. So the braces are always used to combine many things. They are used to combine the statements inside the body of a for loop or a while loop. They are used to combine the elements inside the initializer of an array. So braces are always used as a begin and end indicators. So here they're used as begin and end of the structure. This structure has 3 fields. What are the fields? 2 strings and an int. 2 strings and an int. They are accessible by name. So the string, first string has the name, and the second string has the name, ID, and the third string has the name, department. So those are the 3 components or fields of this definition. Nothing is allocated in memory. No data is stored in memory. When do we store the data in memory? When we declare the variables. At the time of declaration, then at this time only, we allocate space in memory. So here we have student record S1, S2, same as int x1, x2. When you have int x1, x2, what does the compiler do? it looks at the type. What is the type? Int. Is this type built-in or user-defined? It is built-in. The compiler already knows what is an int. You don't need to define an int. So it reserves 4 bytes in memory for x1 and another 4 bytes in memory for x2. Here, is it the same thing? Yes, except that student record is a user-defined type, not a built-in type. So what does the compiler do? It looks, we have S1 and S2 are variables. What is the type of those variables? It is student record. Is this type built-in? No, the compiler doesn't know what is student record. Is it defined by the user? Yes, it is defined in the previous page, or for example in the previous lines of your code. So it looks and it finds that it should have 2 strings and 1 int. So this is what it does exactly. It allocates space in memory large enough for 2 objects, each of which has space for 2 strings and 1 integer. ممتاز. So now, what is the data? What is the values inside those structures? Nothing. أيوة بالضبط كده. As we said, they are not empty. We call it garbage value, non-initialized, random variable, random values. So next, we need to initialize, to put the initial values. And as we said last time, there are 2 ways to put initial values. Either in a separate statement, for example, I write s1 dot name equals whatever value I need, Khalid. Or at declaration time only, I can use the comma separated list. So I can use the dot operator s1 dot name like this. We can use the s1 dot name anywhere in the program. Just after the declaration, later on, at the end, anywhere. Or I can use the initializer, the comma separated list, only at declaration time. الوقت الوحيد المسموح باستخدام الانيشاليزر. And then student record S2 equals S1. This is another way of initialization that we have seen at the end of the previous lecture. We can assign a full structure. We can assign a full structure. So in that case, the fields of S1 are copied in the same order to the fields of S2. So S2 equals S1 is a one-way operation. Is it one-way operation or two-way operation? Is it copied from S1 to S2 or S2 to S1, or it doesn't matter, ما تفرقش?
Yeah, from S1 to S2.
أكيد. طيب at the end they are both the same values. صح؟ S1 and S2 are the same. هتفرق بقى من اليمين لليسار ولا من اليسار لليمين؟ إيه بقى إيه رأيكم؟ تفرق إيه؟ Before the statement is executed, before executing S2 assigned S1, they were not equal. يبقى تفرق. I'm copying from right to left or from left to right. The correct direction is we are assigning, we are copying, we are reading the values on the right side, and we are storing them on the left side. But if we did the opposite, S2 to S1, وهو خطأ. If we had done that thing wrong. Before the assignment they were not equal, because there are many students who will say, what is the difference from right to left or from left to right? في الآخر هما الاثنين حاجة واحدة. They are both equal. No, before the assignment they were not equal. S2 was garbage, was random value, was just declaration. But S1 had some values. If it was okay to copy from right to left or from left to right, maybe I take the garbage value and store it and erase the values in here. So it is only one way. We should always put the values that are to be read, التي تقرأ, on the right side, and the values to be written on the left side. خلاص يتم القراءة. We are reading from S1 and writing into S2. خلاص. This is This should be very clear since CE100, of course, but because some students may be confused. So here we have assigned, so we call this assignment. We have assigned an entire structure, S1 equals S2. جميل. And by the way, this is the only operation allowed on structures. What are the operations that we know? Addition, for example. Is it allowed to write S1 plus S2? What does it mean? strings بيتجمعوا على فكرة بس ليها معنى تاني. يعني انت سألتي السؤال او علقتي فلازم نجاوب. What is the addition of strings? حد عارف؟ Does anyone know? الناس بتوع التطبيقي. فيش. When you add strings, they're not added, of course, ملهاش معنى, but they're concatenated. For example, if I have حازم plus الألفي, the way it is defined in the string library is that they combine both strings together. It becomes حازم الألفي, one word, no spaces. It takes those characters, and put everything together. This is how the plus was overloaded. تم إعادة تعريفها for the strings. خلاص? We are going to study overloading later on when we study C++, but this is just for your information. Even if you had numbers, even if the fields of the structure were only integers, you still cannot add. We cannot add, we cannot multiply, we cannot do any operations with structures except the assignment. S1 equals S2, the only allowed operation. Even comparison is not allowed. S1 equal S2. Is it allowed? No. It is not allowed. خطأ. Also now we understand that we only have one operation. Even though S1 equals S2, comparison, it makes sense, لها معنى, but still it is not implemented. لم يتم تنفيذها in the C++ language. Similarly for cout. Cout, if I would like to print the values in the structure, can I cout S1? Is it allowed? No. So not allowed because the stream inserter operation is not defined. This operator, stream insertion, the less than, is not defined for objects of type structure. It is defined for int, for string, but not for structure. So how can I print the data? But we can print the individual data fields by printing them one by one. The name alone, the ID alone, the department alone. For example here, cout s2.name, or I could have cout s2.id. This is allowed. One by one, field by field, using the dot operator. واضح؟ طيب. Until here we have covered the basics of structures. And it is a review also of Thursday's lecture. So can we move on to today's topic? Today I would like to talk about arrays of structures. To remember arrays of structures, to understand arrays of structures, we need a quick refresh. Arrays of ints, int a 3 equals 1, 2, 3, 4. What does this statement do? This statement is an error, صح? What is wrong with this statement? Not enough space. Okay. Array of 4 and it has 4 data values. What does this statement do? Number 1, it allocates space in memory. تحجز مكان في الميموري. How large is that space? 4 places, 4 elements. How big is each element? Int. Each 4 bytes. Is the attendance sheet circulating? الغياب ماشي شغال ماشي. طيب. An array must have all the elements of the same type. متفقين؟ All the elements of an array should be of the same type. We already know this. And the name of the array is A, and it is pointing here. And the initializer list is storing the values in the array, in the corresponding. واضح لغاية هنا؟ طيب. How about an array of structure? Can we do the same with an array of float? Yes, it is going to reserve float. Array of double. How about array of student record? Do we have a student record defined? Yes, it is defined here. Student record consists of 2 strings and 1 int. So we are going to have, for example, instead of 25, maybe just 5. So we are going to reserve space in memory. The name of that space is students, which is a constant pointer pointing to the first element. How many elements? For example, 5. I cannot draw 25. It will take a lot of time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Are all the elements of the same type? Yes, all the elements must be of the same type. If they are not of the same type, it is not an array. The elements of an array must be all of the same type. What is the type of those elements? Student record. And student record is composed, يتكون من, consists of 3 fields. So 3 fields for the first element of the array, another 3 fields for the second element, another 3 fields for the third, and so on and so on. The first one is a string by the name. The second is an integer ID. The third is a string department. And then the same thing, name, ID, department, name, ID, department, all the 5. So in that case, if I would like to write or print the third element, what do I do? Cout for an int. A sub, what is the index of this element? 2 or 3? 2. ممتاز. Can I do the same with structure? Can I cout students sub I? Yes, no, why? No, we cannot do that. Why not? Because student sub I has many fields, and we just said that you cannot see out an entire structure, you cannot see out a whole structure. You must see out, or any other operation, not just see out. All the operations except assignment cannot be done on structures, including the see out, including the inserter operator, but we can see out individual fields one by one. So this is what we did here. We cannot see out an entire structure. This is simply wrong. So what is the right way of doing it? We can, for example, see out student sub I dot name. So in that case, we are handling an individual field. Or student sub I dot ID. We are dealing with an individual field. In that case, this is possible. So this is how we access the elements. For example, how about the element that is here? Can you see it? I'm putting a big bubble around it. How do you access this element? What are the indices? 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this array of 5 elements. ممتاز. Students sub 3 dot ID. ممتاز. خلاص. So this is how we access the individual elements. طبعا انتوا كويسين اهو. انتوا كويسين ولا انا اللي وحش؟ Now how do you initialize? How do you initialize an array of structures? To initialize an array of structures, we must remember, how do you initialize an array of int? Like this, the first element. This is how we initialize an array of int. Int, array name, equal, comma separated list. And in the comma separated list, we put each element of the type int separated from the previous one using comma. So here we're going to do the same thing. We have a student record array of size 3. So using a constant int size. What does constant mean? It is fixed number. It is a variable, but that you are not allowed to modify inside the program. So by the same way of initialization, we have braces, an open brace and a closed brace. What does those braces include? They include a comma separated list where each element, this element, is the initializer of the first element in the array. The second one is the initializer of the second element. The third is the initializer of the third element. And each element is a structure. So each element is initialized using a comma separated list in itself. So it is a comma separated list of comma separated lists. So the first one has array 1, 2, 3, CS. So this reserves some space in memory that has 3 elements. The first element will have the Ali, the 1, 2, 3, and the CS. The second one will have the Hassan, 4, 5, 6, and ECE, etc. Okay, Muhammad 789 and CE. واضح? Is it clear? Simple. مش صعب. How do we print the elements of this array? How do we print the elements of this array? We know that to print the elements of an int array, for an int array, we just write a for loop. For your quiz is on Thursday. المفروض تكونوا فاكرين بقى الكلام ده. How do you print the elements of an integer array? Integer array. For int I equals 0. I less than size, any number, for example 5, I plus plus, and then C out. The array name, for example, is A, like this one, array A. C out A sub I. So in that case, it is going to print all the elements of the array, but on one line. Maybe you want to put them on separate lines. Yes, for example, you can put end line. So they're printed on separate, So they're printed on separate lines. But can we do the same? Can we do the same with a struct array? Can we see out? Can we just see out students sub I? No, because student sub I is a full structure, it contains the elements. We cannot do this. So how do we do it? Student sub I dot name. So exactly the same way we did it for an int array, we're going to do it for a student record array, an array of which element types are student record. And in that case, we use the same for loop exactly, but we are going to see out student sub I dot name, student sub I dot ID, student sub I dot department. One by one, we can separate with new lines if we like. We can add some information. Name of student I is that thing. Hello? Can you see the code? Is it difficult? Is it easy to understand? No comment. No comment. So what will be the output of this program? The output of this program, as we expected, is going to print this welcome message and like a prompt for each before each data that is printed. Name of student 0 is Ali, name of student 0 is 123, and department is CS, and so on. خلاص? So now we know how to read and write each element, each field in an array of struct. The next thing is pointer to struct. To be able to understand, to deal with pointers of struct, we would like to introduce first, to remember, not introduce, remember pointers to other data types. How do you declare a pointer to an int? كيف يتم تعريف pointer to int؟ اسم التايب, the name of the type first, pointer to an int بس. And then star, so star tells us this is a pointer declaration, and then the name of the pointer, for example P. What does that statement declare? A pointer, ممتاز. So it allocates space in memory. The name of that space is P, and which contains the address in memory of some other place. That other place is an int. That other place is an int. خلاص؟ بس كده. Now if you would like to declare a pointer to a struct, then بالظبط كده. ممتاز. شوف كلام سهل ازاي. Then the new data type is student record. This is the newly defined data type. So I'm going to change int into student record. Okay. So this declares a pointer called PTR. Is that pointer different in size from the pointer to int? هل في اختلاف بين الاثنين pointers دول؟ لا، فيش أي اختلاف. أيوه بالظبط. This pointer is pointing to the first element in int. بس int is simple, هو element واحد. And this pointer is pointing to the first field in the structure. نفس الكلام. So pointers are always the same size, 8 bytes, but they point to different things. بحيث when we follow the pointer, such that when we follow the pointer and reach this place in memory, then in that case, I'm telling the compiler how much should you read in memory. Should we read just a small int, or read a full structure, or read an entire array? So this is why we should be telling the pointer what it is pointing to. So here we are telling the pointer that we are pointing to a struct in memory. String name, integer ID, string department. واضح؟ Clear? In all other respects, both pointers are the same. جميع الاعتبارات الأخرى they are the same size. They are the same size. How can we make the pointer point to that place in memory? For example, if I have another int a, if it is automatically allocated data, then I can make the pointer point to a using the address operator, the ampersand operator. So in that case, I connect the pointer to this a. Similarly, here I can have pointer equals a, pointer assigned, for example, the ampersand of student, the address of a variable called student in memory. So in that case, the pointer is pointing to the first field there. How can you change the value in memory? What do we use? Do you remember? How do you follow the pointer and enter inside the memory and change the value inside? For example, store number 10. How can I write number 10 in memory?
Star
ممتاز. بس star P equals 10. So the star here has a different meaning from the star in the declaration. The star in the declaration declares a pointer وبس. The star not in a declaration, that one, basically that one, dereferences the pointer, it follows the pointer inside the memory and stores the value at the location it is pointing to. So similarly, we can do the same with pointers of type structure. So let's look at this in more details. How do we access the fields of a pointer to structure? As we said, for a number, for an int, for a simple data type, it was easy. Star p equals 10. But can you do the same thing for star pointer, which is pointer of type student record, equals 10? No, where is the 10 going to go? Here or here or here? So we must specify the field. So this is what we do. Star pointer in itself is the entire structure. So what is the field? Dot name, we use dot operator, or star pointer dot ID. So now we can access the individual fields. But this is not how I wrote it here in the slides. Why is it written differently? Apparently, where do I put the parentheses? Here, like this? So I need to dereference first and then read the fields inside. This is the pointer. What it is pointing to? It is pointing to a structure. What does this structure have? It has three fields: name, ID, and department. So I need to follow the pointer and reach inside the memory and then read the individual fields. To be able to do this, first I dereference, then I access the field with the dot operator, then I read the field. طيب لسه ما جاوبناش على السؤال. We did not answer the question. Why do we need the parentheses?
عشان نعرف ان الستار بس PTR.
أيوة, to be able to know that the star, the dereferencing is for the pointer. So what دلال مش دلال لطيفة. What Latifa is saying is that if you don't put the parentheses, maybe the compiler thinks it is star pointer dot name, and in that case there are two errors. The first error is that pointer is not a structure, so you cannot use the dot operator. This is wrong to use the dot operator with non-structure. So what is pointer? Pointer is a structure. Is pointer a structure? Is pointer a structure? هل pointer structure? لا. أمال إيه? What is it then? Pointer is a pointer to structure. It is not a structure. Of حد ذاته مش structure. It points to a structure, but the pointer is a pointer itself. It's a number. So the number does not have fields, does not have components. But when after you dereference the pointer, after dereferencing, it becomes a structure, and then you can access the fields using the dot operator. طيب. Why does if I don't put parentheses, why does the compiler think the dot first and then the star? Because the operations in C++ are ordered in order of precedence. أولويات العمليات الحسابية. The dot has higher precedence than the star. The dot has يبقى ده it's an error to write it this way without any parentheses. This is wrong. We need to put parentheses around the star so that the dereferencing happens first, and then we can access the fields. So we call this a higher precedence. The dot operator, the membership operator, has higher precedence than unary star, the dereferencing operator. واضح? So one common error is to have the missing parentheses, and in that case you should tell me it is an error because name is not field of pointer, or pointer is not a structure, it is a pointer. So pointers do not have fields, do not have components. If you are like me, probably you find that putting parentheses and star and dot, how many operators? 1 operator, 2 operators, 3 operators, 4 operators, to do only one thing, to get inside the pointer to be able to read the fields. So C++ is a shorthand notation language. So they use the arrow operator instead. So instead of writing star pointer, parentheses, star pointer, and then dot, then we can just use the arrow operator. Where is the arrow key on the keyboard? Is there an arrow on the keyboard? No, there is no arrow, but it is composed of 2 characters. The minus character and the greater than character. So you have to type both. So both of those characters together form the arrow operator. What does the arrow operator do? The arrow operator looks at its left-hand side. If it is a pointer, it dereferences that pointer. Then it accesses the field on the right-hand side. If on the left-hand side we don't have a pointer, then it is an error to use the arrow operator. Another error, because as I told you, there are some questions that I give you a piece of code. I don't ask you for the output, but I ask you what is the error in that code. So the arrow operator can only be used with pointers. It cannot be used with structures or with other types of variables. واضح؟ So you can access like this: pointer arrow name, pointer arrow ID, pointer arrow department, etc. All in the student record. Let's look at a short example, and we finish here. First we define, not declare, so this is called the definition. We define a structure data type. It is structure data type. I cannot remember if I was asked here in this group or another group, should the definition of the data type always be global, or can we have it locally inside the main or inside another function? Is it allowed to have the definition, this definition, inside the main? It is okay, but what are the implications? تبعات هذا الموضوع. What are this definition would be local, so it cannot be used in any other functions. It can only be used inside the main. So for this very short, extremely short program, it is okay. But if we have a program with more than one function, each of which is using the same data type, student record data type, it should be redefined in all the functions, or easier, it should be defined globally. It should be defined globally. So this is what I just said. How do I declare a regular variable, not a pointer to variable, of type student record, std1, for example, student1, equals, and then the comma separated list for the initialization of the fields of that variable. So it automatically allocates space in memory called student1. Then it assigns the value Khalid in the name, and the ID becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the department is CE. And this is the easy part. We can also declare a pointer of type student records. So this is a pointer. Currently, it contains a garbage or a random address value until we assign the address of student1 to that pointer in this line. So in that case, it is going to contain the address of the first byte in memory of that structure. For example, we can use the arrow operator, pointer arrow ID equals 67890. What happens? It overwrites the initial value 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 using 67890. Okay, so arrow operator accesses the data pointed to using the pointer to a structure. So it can only be used with a pointer to structure. It cannot be used with pointer to int. It cannot be used with pointer to other than structure. Similarly here. But here I'm going to use them for cout. Why do I cout field by field? Because I cannot write cout in the entire structure. Here the entire structure is star pointer. This is wrong, as we said. This is completely wrong. We also cannot write the entire structure even without pointer. This is also wrong. So if you would like to use the pointer, we use it with the arrow operator. If you would like to use the structure variable itself, we use it with the dot operator. So dot with structure is the same as arrow with pointer to structure. Shukran. We finished the lecture. Class dismissed.